Shalom, I'm Rav Leo, and I'm here to transform your day. Today's topic is Learned Optimism. There's a great book by Professor Martin Seligman called Learned Optimism. He's professor of the University of Pennsylvania, and he invented the field of positive psychology. And in it, he describes an experiment of two groups of dogs. One group is put into a box and given electric shocks, but they can stop it by pressing a lever, which they soon work out they can do. The second group is put into a box nearby, which has a lever which doesn't work, and they get a shock, but they can't stop it. And so soon they sit there getting electric shocks without being able to do anything about it, as one would expect. But what's interesting is he takes the two groups of dogs and then puts them into a third box. This box has an electric shock area, a small partition where they can jump over, and an area where there's no electric shock at all. When he puts the first group of dogs in that learned how to turn off the shock, they very quickly learn that they can get away from the shock by jumping over the barrier. When he puts the second group in that learned that they couldn't do anything about the shock, they sit there and they don't do anything, even though in theory they could jump over the barrier and escape the shock. This he calls learned helplessness, and this is something which leads to depression in animals and human beings. And yet there's something he describes as learned optimism. And he says we can learn how to be optimistic very much through our speech. For example, a kid who comes back and says, "Mom, I failed my maths test, I'm useless at maths," is really learning helplessness. But a kid who comes back and says, "Mom, I did terribly in my maths test, but it's because I didn't have time to revise and because I was really tired," that kid's learning optimism, because there's already a sort of twinge of solution in his problem. And so too in our prayers, we see tinges of optimism, even in the saddest places. For example, within our prayers we have tachanan, which are prayers about the sadness of life and the pains and suffering that we and the Jewish people have been through. And in theory, it could be the most depressing, miserable types of prayers that we have during the day. However, it's not. And why is it not? Because there are lines like, "And God, how long?" Well, "And God, how long?" is suggesting that even though we're suffering now, we expect there'll be an end to our suffering as the Jewish people. And so too, just as we can learn in our prayers how to be optimistic, so we should take that optimism into our lives, and we should be optimistic in every aspect of our lives, particularly when things don't go as we expect. Have a great day.